Hello world, welcome to the 70th Climate Change Emergency Awareness Protest here in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, USA. It is April 10th. I'm outside sitting in our little hacienda that I built, and Tanya and I enjoy this out here, and I'll take a quick shot of the garden area that we have that's out back, but it's not springtime, so it's what is springtime, but it's not very warm out, so we haven't gotten the garden area growing. But as you can see, there's all sorts of work we've been doing, and one is a rain garden, and it's runoff for the backyard, and it's basically a dug down area lined with rocks, and it goes out to the creek nearby. So it's April 10th. The next rally will be the 71st Climate Change Emergency Awareness Rally, and that'll be on April 17th. It is Good Friday today for the Christians. Passover, I think it's in the second day of that. And many other holidays. Of course, religions have holidays during this period of time. It is a good lesson, though, as to the lesson of Passover, in that maybe we're in the middle of these plagues that was sent down from God or whatever, but it's definitely man-made, created, and but what it is a lesson for all of us to kind of change our ways as far as our behavior towards the planet and the earth, whether this coronavirus is man-made or natural or monkey-made or bat-made or whatever. It is a lesson for us to be more aware of what we're doing to the planet and the animals that live on it, and the environment in general. It is definitely an opportunity for us to change everything and to go forward and use this weakness that we have right now in our system as an opportunity to become stronger and to come out of this in a different direction. But most likely the United States and the world are not paying attention to what's happening and the potential good practices we could get out of this, and instead we're going to go back to doing our bad ways and polluting the air and the environment. Right now I think it's 1.6 million people around the world have been infected by this coronavirus, and in the United States it's 468,000 people have been infected. New York State has more people in that state that have been infected than the whole rest of the world. Pennsylvania, where I live, has 18,600 have been affected. My guess is today will be 20,000, close to it. 3 weeks ago, instead of 18,000 that we have now, 3 weeks ago we had 187 people that were infected. So it's gone from 187 in 3 weeks up to 18,000. So that's a pretty good exponential growth in this virus. My guess is either the testing is delayed and that they didn't test people right away, or they did and the results were delayed, or people are not practicing social distancing. In the one time I've been to the grocery store in the last 3 weeks, people did not have gloves on for the most part. People did not have face masks on, especially the people that handle the money and that are doing the daily work there. They need to wear face masks, they need to wear gloves, especially those people. And then the people coming in the store, many had face masks, but not everyone, and not everyone had gloves on for sure. So the potentiality of spreading will continue, and my guess is when Trump decides very soon that everything is calmed down somewhat or slowed down, he's going to let the economy go ripping along, and we're going to have a second wave of infections, and it's not going to be pretty. It's going to be worse than the first wave in my estimation. But we'll see if he, with his ideas, whether he'll go forward and be successful. My guess is, based on past performance, he will fail horribly, and we will too. So we need to rethink and retool as to what's going on with ourselves and also our whole system. Rethinking everything such as politics. You really have to look at your politicians, and I know everyone's giving them a pass and say, no, they're doing what they can, but in reality, they're not. The bailout package was geared towards corporations, big corporations. The little guy, the businesses they're being given in the latest round that they're proposing. They're being given a loan possibilities, but not grants. Businesses that don't have money don't need a loan situation where you're even more in a bind when you come out of this than what you were when you went into it. Your politicians right now, the professional politicians down in DC, are not on your side. they're given this huge amount with the potentiality of leverage that the corporations can leverage their loan amount as well, so, or their grant amount. So if they're given, I think it's $250 billion in loans and grants for the corporations, they can leverage that 10 times as much. So instead of being $250 billion, it could be $2.5 trillion. Is that right? 250. Instead of $500 billion, it can be $5 trillion in loans and grants. So they can 10 times it. So it's a very scary thing. And what that can potentially lead to is hyperinflation. If anyone's business oriented or whatever, can feel free to comment and say what is actually going to happen with this. But to me, if you're printing unlimited money and just pouring it into corporations who are just going to use it for their own bonuses or whatever, their own profit, it potentiality leads to hyperinflation, in that it's money being printed with no backing at all and no return to the average person. Had they used the full $2 trillion package for the average person, all that money would have gone to the corporations eventually anyway, but instead it's going straight to the corporations, skipping around the average person. So meanwhile, we're given $1,200 that's supposed to last us 2 or 3 months. And, unless you live in a tent somewhere up on the Appalachian Trail, that's not going to work. So it's a time to rethink about, what your political situation is, whether both parties are on your side. And I know the Democrats think their people are working for their people, and the Republicans think they're on their side in the business-oriented model. But in reality, they're both very similar to each other in many ways. One might be overtly more against the average person, and the other one is by de facto action, meaning their actions over their words indicate that they're not on your side. So, whether you sit at home and just ponder, what TV program to watch, I would start thinking about, your political situation and whether these two nominees, Biden and Trump, are going to be the ones that are going to lead us into trouble, out of trouble, or back into trouble even more so. So, I'm not saying to advocate for another candidate that was running as well, because in my mind, the whole both political parties are shifting to the right. Horribly. Bernie Sanders, who was running, who dropped out, to me was just a moderate down the middle kind of guy. His proposals were radical supposedly when they came up, but now we've gotten so far beyond that we need to have an extremely left-wing outlook as far as the environment goes, and in order to save ourselves from extinction by 2026 in my estimate, or it's going to become pretty horrible by then. We were number one in the world. We keep saying we're number one, we're number one, we're number one. Yeah, we've proven to the world we're number one in fragility, because it only took this virus to knock us out in 1 month. The average person, you see that by the food banks and everything else, they're really hurting. Unless you're on a salary or getting a pension or Social Security, you're in a little bit of trouble. You can't pay your bills, you can't get food, and people are going to start getting desperate pretty soon. Lack of funds to the individual is a real problem. Yeah, they're extending unemployment compensation, but not everyone is on or eligible for unemployment. You got self-employed people and gig workers, as they're called, that are paid by the job and don't pay into the unemployment compensation program. So, it's entirely possible these people have no money at all. We've been out of work for basically a month. Luckily, I have a pension as well, but the average income that we have has been depleted by 2/3, if not more. So it's very difficult that way. And there are many people, like waiters and waitresses, that have no income at all, and they're probably starving to death. So politics, it's whether you want to be have allegiance to your party in a dogmatic way and are thinking about things, or not thinking about things. You need to start thinking about, as I said before, as to what you want the eventual outcome to be as far as yourself and your children. People will be starving in the United States. I think there's going to become social unrest unless they figure out what to do very soon. You can't make $1,200 go over 90 days. It's impossible. So, especially in a city where the inflation rate and the cost of living is so high. People are insecure about their money, the food, shelter, and the bills. It's not good, as I said. We need to rethink our process as to where we want to go as far as greening of America, whether we want technology and transportation to change. It is the perfect opportunity to engage in a situation that we can change our mode of transportation, whether we want to invest in wind and solar, and we definitely want to have groups get together and talk about different ideas that they have as far as solutions to our addiction to petrochemicals, and fossil fuels. This is not the only answer. Tesla invented the Tesla Tower back in the 1930s, and it was free electricity, but no one's ever looked into that, and the government came in and took his notes when he died. So, we need to have strong minds, forward-thinking minds as to what we can do in the future as far as laying out a groundwork to steer this country. Right now, staying in the same situation is not the answer with fossil fuels, and it will lead to our eventual deaths if we don't straighten up. Another thing we're not exploring is mass transit. Our country here in the United States is all about cars and trucks, and meanwhile Trump has reduced the fuel economy ratings that cars have to get now. Instead of going up and saying cars have to get more fuel mileage, he's reduced it for some odd reason, because he's in bed with the fossil fuel industry. So it will kill you and your children, and the question is, do you want to keep going along this road and watch your children die? And that's by 2050. I can't even imagine what this world will look like. But as I said, in my estimation, we're going to start seeing problems in 2023, which is 3 years from now. And I think we're going to have some severe food insecurity issues by 2026, amongst the other things such as drought and flooding and things like that. Another thing to look into would be medical coverage for all. This is the perfect opportunity. It proves that, we need to have medical coverage for everyone. People aren't going to the doctor, and the healthcare system is just wrongly flooded in inundation with people because they got sick or they waited too long, to go into a doctor or whatever. And this situation developing proves that we need to have medical coverage for everyone. Everyone should have the ability to get prescriptions and see a doctor whenever they choose. We need more thrust as to, with an aging population, you need more thrust towards creating more nursing positions and more doctoral positions. Maybe different levels of doctors, maybe doctors that are almost doctors but not quite doctors. I don't know. That's why we need groups to get together and to talk about things. So over to a climate change talk here. It's going to be real brief, but right now the CO2 level has been pushing 417 parts per million, which is by far the new record. Some charts show 418 it's reached. So my guess is it'll hit 420 before the end of May. And that's not a good situation, in that humans have existed only when CO2 level has been somewhere between 200 and 280 parts per million. And that's been a fairly steady environment. And now with 417, things are going to spiral out of control. There's a 10-year lag between CO2 levels and heat catching up. So basically, if you subtract 10 to 15 years off of now, we're back in 2005. The iPhones haven't come on board yet. The mass manufacturing and coal industry in China has not come on yet as far as the heat. So we're going to be in for a rough ride. As I estimate again, within 3 years, it's going to start getting really bad. I've seen reports in Newsweek that they said that the temperatures are locked in a 7 degrees Celsius increase, which translates to probably around a 12 degree Fahrenheit increase. And that means that somewhere around, 1/3 of those days would probably be 16 degrees higher, Fahrenheit. So if you have a 100 degree day, it could be easily a 116 degree day instead of a 100 degree day, which would be normal for, that type of summer weather. So what happens is your farms can't grow food, people die of heat exhaustion and different things like that. You have a severe drought usually too in those kind of conditions, and then you could have a severe deluge of rain. So we need the federal government to be on our side and not working against us. And if your politician is obviously siding with corporations and the fossil fuel industry, you need to change that person. I don't care if they have seniority or not. You got to start looking across the table at your kids and go, are my kids going to survive this in another 3 years, 6 years, 20 years, 30 years? If your child is 10 years old, 2050 is only 30 years away. So it could easily have a problem in that by 2050, your children are not alive due to the extreme temperatures and extreme conditions. So you got to really start considering whether 7 generations from now or even this generation is where if they're going to be able to survive in the future. So the Arctic sea ice is at the all-time low, and to most people that doesn't mean anything, but there's a massive amount of methane trapped underneath the permafrost up there. And so methane is a dramatically potent greenhouse gas, which can be up to 160 times more potent as far as trapping heat as does CO2. Also, you get a loss of albedo with the loss of sea ice, and that causes a heating of the Arctic in a wild way, in that the jet stream is profoundly affected. And also from a cooling point of view, the Arctic no longer cools things down. So we're going to see some dramatic changes in the next few years coming up. If the jet stream is shifted and is doing these wild swings, like today, it is 42 degrees here. 3 days ago it was in the 60s or 70s. And on Monday it's going to be 76 degrees. And then by Wednesday it's going to be 48 degrees. So things are changing very dramatically around here in Pennsylvania, but around the world as well. So we really need to start working together as a group and getting together, and don't treat climate change as if it's some topic that no one can talk about. Everyone's going to be profoundly affected, and you might look like a lunatic talking about it with your friends, but believe me, it's worth it in the end, and that you did everything you could to change things. And if people don't want to go along with it, you can't do much about that, but you hope that people wake up and start working together and talking about issues, and quit being so scared as to what your neighbor will think. So next week's talk will be next week on the April 17th, and that'll be the 71st climate change emergency protest. Hopefully this virus thing will end soon, but it doesn't look like it, and people can get back out on the streets, but I suspect things are going to devolve back into a second wave of this until they get a vaccine. So see you next week on the 17th of April. Bye.